Well, welcome. This is Classroom Lesson 2, and I want to do a quick review of Lesson 1 and then move into other variations. If you remember in Lesson 1, the most important thing the first 3 to 4 weeks is procedures, routines, getting the kids grooved into doing things such as coming in the classroom, going right into their job quietly, then doing handwriting work, maybe some sight word work with a partner, but they know what to do when they come in and they get right started. That way you have a calm start before the lesson and the kids are already ready to go versus just coming in and starting. So it's good to have kind of an entry thing when kids come in the room. They're called grabbers. You can even have a coloring thing. When kids enter the room, they just don't screw around till the class starts. You know, you basically get them grooved before the lesson. Then we talked about how with the lesson itself, you're starting the first 3 to 4 weeks of procedures, classroom procedures, how to echo for the mouthing of sounds or pointing this, saying the sounds, how to say it, having the kids echo clearly, and how to point. And I'm doing that as a kind of a class lesson. The kids have their own boards in front of them, but I'm going and they're all going and pointing, and then I'll correct it, and then I'll go and I'll go and then I'll point to it so they know they're right. And then I'll start roving around the room while I'm giving sounds, and I'll do corrections like you have, I want. And then for reading, I'll point and the whole class will work with me on and say the sounds. Then I'll do new concept as a class. The most important thing is the step tracking, which you do as a class. And you're getting kids to echo the word. So frit, and they go frit. And they have frit out. All right, we're going to make it fret, and they go fret. They push the A up. At, and then they make the change and say the word. I went into those procedures in depth, but it'll take a good 3 weeks to get that down for kids. So it's the procedures. And then the reading is easy. I make the word and they read it. So that's easy as a class. Right now I'm focusing on procedures, getting kids. Then I can have individual kids volunteer and read them. Now the can shift to the back side of the board if you're there and do the same procedures. Teaching them how when you say the sound shun, they find the word shun and read it. If I go jour, they find jour and read it. And then I point to it, and then I make three syllable words. I can say the 3 syllable words, they build them or make them. And so I can do the back side of the board for procedures if I have a higher group. Then spelling, I'm basically saying the word, and the spelling procedures are pretty close to this step tracking, because when I say the word spit, you echo the word spit, and then you say the sounds as you go. It, spit. So I'll teach that procedure again, how to do that. And then reading, how to sound out words you don't know. And I'll model that versus reading words you know. So I'll start by going, well, that word's laugh. I know that word. This word, I got to sound out activity, rustic. Yesterday, I know that word. And then I might have kids alternate, raise their hand to alternate reading words. Again, I'm teaching the procedures of sounding out or reading, and same with the phrases. And then I go into the reading of sentences. And there I will basically show the pressure release where I'll be reading a bit. The class will read with me. And then I'll have the class read, and then I'll take over and they'll read with me. And I might leave out a word, they'll fill in. Then I give it back, the class will read. If I hear a word that's not pronounced right, I'll point to it. But I'm modeling pressure release where they read, then I read, they read with me, and they fill in the word. Okay. And then the written response, we actually have a nice setup here and the LearnUp board that's just been added, which is cool. It's kind of like the Zoom, but better. You click on written response. And you have a little board here, and you can enlarge it. And you can write it, like if I click this, and I can also use this for spelling. Man, okay, that's a little tougher. You can clear it, or you can type it. I like this. The man is at home is having a good time. Okay. All right. So you can write this and then take a picture of it if you want a record of it. So again, if you have a class while they're doing a written response, you're just roving around the room. And if you see a phonetic misspelling, you'll just say, you have, I want. But you're roving around the room checking their written response. Okay. Now we talked about that, getting the procedures down. We talked about how to start individualization, and that's through Fast Friends, which I'm covering today as a form of class lesson. But where Fast Friends comes in is you'll say the sound, and all the kids on their board now, when you individualize, will start pointing your board and you rove. And then for reading, you'll point to a few difficult sounds and then have kids alternate pointing. I talked about that last week. I'll show it again today. Then I have new concept. And then I have the syllable work where now they know their procedures. So I can go fit, make it flit, make it, and they're following the procedures. And then for reading, I'll try a few tough words and then I'll leave a nonsense word up and they will alternate changing sounds and I'll rove and make corrections. And then you have spelling where you just dictate spelling words regularly like you do. And now they know the procedure so they can write them even on paper or on our board. And then the reading, they alternate reading words and I will rotate as they alternate reading words, pointing to some of the tougher words. Then they alternate reading sentences and I'll rotate doing pressure release. I'll get into that a little more. That's the start of individualization. So you've now got the plan, but during the Fast Friends, the reading of sounds, syllables, and words, you're able to rotate, check the words, check the sounds, check the syllables individually. So it's the first step in individualization. And, you know, if you have a class somewhat together, that may be as far as you need to go. Okay. Today, I'm going to talk about some more radical approaches. And some of these have more time consumption. They require more administration, more work on the teachers. And so it's just for you to evaluate, you know, can I do this? Now, the most effective one you can do was done at Detroit Country Day. And they're considered the second most prestigious school in Detroit. Some say the number one, but they were very successful with this approach. They made performance groups, and this is going to be on your handout. They made performance groups across a grade. And in some cases, I've seen it done across first and second grade. Now, what does that mean? What that meant is they had in the first couple of weeks had a determination of your low, middle, and high group, or your start 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. Okay. And so when language start, kids come in their room, they get groove, they do their handwriting, and then when reading comes, they're sent to different rooms based on their performance group. So there's a small group for start ones, or if there is, but if not, you have your start 2 group, your start 3, and then your 4 or 5 groups, okay? You could even have a start 2, 3, 4, and then a whole language group, which is 5, but they go to their group for 40 to 50 minutes, then they come back to their ELA class or language class or reading, whatever you want to call it, and then they do some other work with language. So they leave for the performance group and come back. I never heard any problem with that in terms of social emotional, because they were very careful how they presented it, that this has nothing to do with intelligence. It's a skill like learning Spanish. And if you haven't learned Spanish 1 real well yet, you're not going to go to Spanish 3, right? Well, the same thing with my books. My first book in a series is like Spanish 1. It's like my reading 1, the first book. And if that's where you're at, we don't want to put you at you know, reading number 24 book. So it's just like that. And then as you progress, you're going to go to higher books. And this way is going to ensure your the fact that you're going to learn to read. Because what that means as a teacher, I don't have to worry about low, middle, high groups. I got start 2 kids and I'm doing Tales of Mystery. Okay. Or I've got a start 3 group and I'm doing Tales of Adventure. So I can basically, and I'm going to start them where they're at. I have a start 4 that's going to move into maybe Moonlight Tales. And we start them in the book that they're ready to get into. So we catch them up quick, just like we do in with any start 4. We find out what they know, we clean up the board, we review what they know, and we're just doing that. So we don't have a lot of preps. We only have the prep for that group. So that is a highly effective approach. Let me pause for a moment, because probably after each one of these, I should answer a question if there's any. Is there any questions about that approach? That makes sense? Now, there is pushback on performance grouping. They're saying you make the kid feel bad because he's in a low group. You know, it's depressing for the kid. Well, it's more depressing if he can't read his whole life. You know, so the deal is, this administrator recognized that, and she saw the improvements right away. The kids are all learning to read. So, but that's the pushback. We don't want to ever make any kid feel like he's any different than anybody else. Okay. Well, we do it in Spanish. We do it in French, you know. We do it in sports. We do it in almost everything else. So I think in reading, it's important. So that's approach 1. Okay. And I look at that as an easier approach. We're now at classroom reading groups. This would start off with the standard lesson that we talked last time, the first individualization, where the kids are actively engaged, and for the reading of sound syllables and reading of words, they're doing Fast Friends. The reason it was called Fast Friends is my program in Michigan was called FAST, and it gets you with friends. So it's a fast way. But I'll tell you, I was working in Arizona, and the classrooms, as I was watching the lesson, were pretty deadbeat when the teacher was doing just the full lesson with the group. And when I went to Fast Friends, so that after they did the sounds and the group pointed, they then went with partners for reading. And then after they did the step tracking, they went, the whole energy of the whole classroom changed totally. It became a very active class. It was night and day. Because the other is like just too procedural, and you're just following the teacher's direction. So now in this classroom reading groups, you're doing your regular lesson. You have your spelling of sounds that you say while you rove, and then you'll make corrections while you're roving. And then you'll do the partner reading of sounds where they alternate pointing. You'll do your new concept. Then you will do your step tracking where you're roving around the room, giving words, and kids are making the changes. And then you'll do partner reading. You'll do a few nonsense words on the board, and then they'll go to partner reading, and you'll rove. Then you'll do the spelling, and then for reading, they will break up into maybe 3 groups. They're in partners, but they're near each other in a group. So they're doing partner work with their partner. Now, this is more involved for a teacher, and it requires more organization. But basically what it is this. Your class lesson is hitting the lower kids with its concept for reading. Spelling is, by the way, affects all kids. So when you're doing Hungry Roll, you're hitting first, second graders, because none of them know that, or Bully Roll. But for the reading concepts, you might only be up through closed syllables or teams with the lower group, but your second group is ready for Voltag. So when they're in the reading groups, you will rotate, go to the Voltag group and quickly show them the Voltag, and then go right to the book and start Voltagging in the book. Then when you go to your high group, they're ready for diphthongs. So you quickly do a diphthong lesson. Okay. Meanwhile, everyone else is doing their partner work. They only come together as a group when you get to their table. They come together. Otherwise, they're doing their partner work. So you don't have to be there. So in other words, you can stay ahead of the book by teaching that reading concept and then practicing the reading concept immediately in the words of the book. Okay. So what does this involve? Well, it involves first knowing the basic plan and having procedures down, and then adding the Fast Friends component for reading of sounds, syllables, and words. So it requires that. And then it requires for you to stay on top of what reading concept the kids are going to need for their book and handle it. So you're doing one class lesson but really two other little reading lessons. Okay, so that is another possibility. And we call that classroom reading groups.
I have a quick question. When you're doing it, doing in the class, does every student then have their own like magnetic board?
It depends. Everyone having their own magnetic board is pretty expensive.
Right.
The boards, I think now you need two of them back to back, but they'll go for like, at my website, which when you hit it, they'll go for like 15, 20 bucks. And I haven't bought them lately, so they're probably like over 20, like 10 to 12 per board. So you need two of them. And then the letters are cost a mint now because the magnets, they're having trouble getting. So they're like 45 for a set of magnets. So it's talking 65, 70, where if you use the digital board and every kid can get it free, it's no money. And if you do digital books, they're less than half price right now of the regular books. So that way, if you're low on money, you can do, or you can buy some digital boards, some material books. But with the digital, it does have the advantage of you can project the digital board on a wall. All you need is a projector, and you can get those for 150 to 250 bucks. I use that when I do a workshop. I project my board on the wall, and I use that all week when I do a workshop. So you can project that on the wall so you can do your class lesson, and then kids can use theirs at their seat. Yes, Carrie.
So we can get digital boards through LearnUp for the entire class for free?
Yeah, right now they're free. They just go online and get it.
Okay.
I mean, right now, just so you know the service we're providing right now, most phonics programs take you 2 years to learn the program, and you have to do a lot of bells and whistles between them. Okay. And you're paying for different things as you're going through it. We do it all in this week workshop. And presently we have these digital materials that are like half price or less. We have the digital board, and we have free review workshops on Wednesday. Right now, this isn't review. I've been asked to do classroom lessons.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and if you didn't see the first one, you can get it online.
I've always taught upper grade, so I've never taught learning how to read.
Yeah.
So this is a whole new world for me.
Yeah, it is.
And you are a God save, because somehow, I don't know, Big Brother was listening and you came up and offered this new thing.
Yeah. Not
new, I'm sure, for you, but it's been amazing. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Well, great. Okay, now that we've discussed probably the most efficient, which is where you're performance grouping by grade level, and kids are going to various classes. That's the most efficient, because as a teacher, I'm just teaching a start 2s or start 3s or 4s. It's very efficient. And then I could have a whole language class. Okay. And then the classroom is a little tougher, because we do the regular standard lesson with Fast Friends built in. And then when we go to reading group, we teach what reading concept they need. That's a little tougher to do. I did mention in last week, and I'll re-mention it here, when you have kids who can read well, we don't want to stick them with Ocean Fun. So you get kids, believe it or not, I've seen first graders, I think it's inappropriate, but they were reading Harry Potter.
Yeah.
It's incredible. That. Okay, so we teach them, they join the phonics group, okay, for spelling and for later on for word attack. But then they go and in the basic individualization, I have them get together with a partner, choose the same book. They can alternate reading with their partner, what book they want. I took appropriate books for first, second, third. I like the Treehouse series and School Bus series. And, I like Paulson's series. He's got the Tucker, World of Adventure, Hatchet. So appropriate books they would pull, and they'd work in partners, and then they would draw pictures, do book reports, do written responses. So they're actually doing whole language. So when I'm roving groups in the most basic plan, and I'm roving and all my kids are reading the book I've taught, when I'm coming to them, I'm just checking to see where they are. And I would, simply ask where you are in the book, give me a short gist statement, give me an advanced gist statement, and just checking to see how they're doing. So that way you can individualize in our most basic program is by doing the program with fast friends and have your whole language book kids pull from a book bag and get them in partners so they can have somebody to talk to about the books. Let's move to the next component, the 30-minute lesson. Now this was going to partly answer the question of a gal who asked me last time, I only have 20 minutes twice a week. What do I do? The 30-minute lesson is not ideal. It's a case where you only have 30 minutes of reading and you've argued for more time and they won't let you do it. And this is what this looks like. I've broken it down into Monday and Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So Monday and Wednesday, you're doing spell and read sounds, new concept, spell and read syllables and reading, short lesson, okay? Then Tuesday, Thursday, you're doing spelling and reading sounds, spelling words, reading and fluency. Friday, you're doing fluency, reading, and written response. So you're getting more writing done. So here you're doing very quick hitting spell and read sounds, your new concept, spell syllables quick, and then 12-minute reading, okay? Here you're getting 16 minutes of reading, but you're spending more time with spelling of words. So notice that you're getting 2 days where you're getting more time with spelling of words, 2 days where you're trying to hit the full schedule. And then you're working on fluency, pressure release, and echo reading, and just statement and COPS, written response. So you're doing more writing on Friday. Is this ideal? No, you got to really move. All right, let's go to the last. The last component is something I've been talking about constantly, which is called fast friends. Fast friends is a pretty amazing technique because when brought into the basic plan, it breathes life into it. Because the teacher's directing all auditory things like saying sounds, but the kids are partner working on all the reading of sounds, reading the syllables, and the reading of the books. And again, the amount of activity is amazing compared to just doing the regular classroom lesson. And again, I saw that in spades in Arizona. It was just night and day, and everyone loved it because suddenly the kids had fun. They were with a partner, they were alternating, and it gave a lot of activity. So that's just pretty powerful. And the Fast Friends is built into it. But Fast Friends initially was a technique I used when kids were feisty or having attention issues and really just could not really seem to stay focused, or whenever there was an assembly, or when Buffalo Bob came in and did a demonstration, or there's a fireman comes by, or you have an emergency drill, you know what, you get all those interferences. So you got an hour and maybe 10 minutes for language, hopefully, something like that, maybe an hour, hour and a half, and suddenly you have a half hour. No panic, Fast Friends. And Fast Friends is going to be the basis of what I'll be teaching paraprofessionals and parents to do. I add a little more beef to it for the tutoring, but Fast Friends is going to be the basis of the structure of the tutoring format for paraprofessionals and parents, okay, and anyone else who wants 2 hours to be able to help with reading. So this part of individualization is in workshop 1. So workshop 1, the first time we individualize is once we start individualizing and having the kids do the work, not me just do procedures, I start bringing in Fast Friends, and it gains a lot of activity. However, if you have, which happened to me a lot in school, I don't know if it happens to you, but there's always something going on, you know, and you lost your hour and you only got a half hour. Easy. Get them in partners. Have them, they already know, they've done it in the lesson. They already know what Fast Friends is. Say, okay, I want you to begin with sounds. and I'm going to go check. So I'm roving around, and I go to the kids who are having trouble first and pointing to the problem sounds to make sure I can clean them up. And then I go check others. So they're doing sounds, and that can be, you know, like 5 minutes while they're reading sounds. Then they're going to syllables. And I'll put a syllable on the board. I'll often do, like with sounds, before I do sounds, I will put a couple up on the board and just practice the hard sound. Then they'll go to syllables, and I'll put a syllable on the board. I might do a couple with the class, couple syllables, nonsense, to stretch them. And then I'll put one on the board, and they will start there, and they'll alternate putting in letters into the nonsense words, which I'm going to show in a minute. And then they go to the book, and they do the alternate reading words and phrases, and then alternate reading sentences. And I'm rotating, checking the words, and then doing pressure release. Now, pressure release is done pretty easily with two people. So it's kind of like, you see where I'm at now. The kids would be over here in front of me, sitting on another table. So they'd be over here sitting on another table. So for pressure release, I'll have the child on my right, which may be your left, but I'll have the child on this side start reading. And when he makes an error, I'll point and he'll correct it. And as long as it's with two, we can make 2 errors. He makes another struggle, I'll point, he'll read it. And then I take over and both of them read, just like pressure release. Then I go to the other student, I point to the word he's supposed to start on. So I'll point, he'll start reading. When he makes an error, I'll point. Now with kids who are fragile, I'll only point once before I take over. In 2s, I haven't found it quite a big an issue, but any kid that's fragile, I only point once and take over. Okay, so I'll point. If he's not fragile, I'll point again, then I'll take over both read, then I go back here. And this child will start reading. And I've done this, it's really slick. And you get it. And then when you take over, they're gonna read with you, and you can leave out a word, they both fill in, and then you go to another. So I'm basically going from student, he makes 1 mistake or 2, I take over, they both read, then they go to this student, he reads, and once he makes a struggle or 2, then I take over. That's called partner pressure release. Now, the beauty of this, you get pulled out of the room, teacher wants to talk to you, fast friends. I don't know if that ever happens to you, but the administrator wants to talk to you about an issue. You just say, Bobby, lead fast friends. And Bobby will say sounds at 5 minutes. Okay, syllables, 10. Words, book, and they'll go to the book. It can run itself. Once you get the kids grooved. See, and that was my point of last week, getting the kids grooved where they know what to do so they can do it themselves. It's a wonderful technique. Now, I had a severe ADHD group, severe. I mean, about a 1-minute attention span for class lessons. And when I'd start a class lesson, and if they were really out of it, I moved right to fast friends. And with the ADHD, it worked beautifully because they were in partner work and I was working one-on-one. But I knew from working with the kids when a class lesson wasn't going to work. So I did that, moved to this, and was highly effective. So presently, everyone can access this board online. So George, we're going to pretend I'm going to point for you. You'll say the sound, and then I'm going to be you and move the cursor, and then I'll say the sound. But when the cursor moves and I say it, that would be you pointing, not me.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So we're now fast friends, and one student says, all right, everyone begin sounds. So I point. Then you point and I go, then I. Then you, eh. Then you. Then me, rrr. Then you, eh. Then me, eh. Then you,
Ah.
Then me, Then you,
Ah.
then me, oh. Then you,
R.
So we review the sounds. We can also go to the back of the board and review the endings. Able.
Able.
Can be able, but actually as a suffix, it's able. Like
Able.
capable, yeah. It's able as a word, but able is an ending.
Okay.
Shun,
Asian,
shun,
shun,
and jun. It has two sounds. These are actually at the bottom. The key words for these are at the bottom of lesson 9D, where I have keywords for these to help you remember these. So we could do that too. And so if I'm going to do 5 minutes with sounds, we would probably be going from here. And if we've done the back of the board, do a little of the back of the board. All right, now we're at syllables. So on the board, I would have a nonsense syllable up. And they need to stick with the pattern. What that means is there's 3 tiles. I don't want them to add a 4th. That's more complicated. Right now, I want them to stay at 3. And so I'm going to move for you. Okay, George?
pa, Pam.
Good. Now let's look at this sound. You're giving it an you said Is that what you see? With me? Like something's good. So let's sound this out with me. Ready?
Pa,
Pam, good.
Pam.
All right, so you move for me. And if I can read the whole syllable, I encourage it. Oops. For reading, we need to glue. This is something we found. For reading, you need to glue the vowel to the initial consonant. Pim. See how that moves that nicely? Pim. All right, now you're going to move for me. I'm going to move for you. I'm sorry.
Picks.
Good. Dicks. Now, if you're working with a partner, I encourage them to help each other. Okay. So if I got it, George might say, okay, Steve, what was that sound again? I just encourage them to help and I'll demonstrate what. If they have trouble, they raise their hand and then I help them. But, you know, Fast Friends is about working in it's cooperative learning is what it is. So we're trying to get them to be cooperative. All right, Bix. George?
Box. Real quick, hey, Steve, I had a quick question. When you're doing this, do you want them to do, when you're in this very process that we're demonstrating, do you want them to sound out each letter or just say it? If they can say it, just say box.
Say the whole syllable. I want them to do that.
Okay.
Now, initially, for a kid who can't read, I was presented with a kid today who didn't know names of letters, which actually is good. I want him to know the sounds, but really only knew a few sounds. So that child's going to have to say the sounds to get the word. But I want them to get faster and faster. One way to get faster is to glue the vowel to the consonant, as I'm doing here. Box. See? Well, that speeds things up rather than box. Box. Helps speed things up. So when the reading, we glue this vowel to the consonant. Okay, so we read that, and that may be 10 minutes or more. Or we can also do this. Flip the board over, and I can have a syllable on the board like this. And they will alternate putting in a green, yellow, or a green, white, or red. So misjectable. George, this is yours.
Misjection.
And George makes a change for me. Mistension. Whoops. This has the same thing. We want to glue this here. Mistension. Then George changes this. And I go abtention. Got to separate them just like the front, abtention. So again, we got to separate it. We can glue this. This is the bug right now in it that we're working on, abtention. So it's the same idea. When in doubt, just space them, abjection. And they're alternating reading the backside of the board. So that's part of reading syllables. This is syllables and words. The other one is sounds and syllables. Okay. All right, then we go to the book. So I'd read the first word, held.
Class.
Crisp.
Sixth.
Sense. Now,
Fance.
okay, if George didn't think that sounded right, his partner said, Steve, could you say that again? sense. You might say, I think it's sense. Oh, sense. Okay.
Gotcha.
And then we go listen, and we do the vowel classical. We alternate reading the words. Then we alternate reading the phrases. Peppa just finished.
Listening to a lecture.
Yeah. In Origins of Western.
Philosophy class.
Pep loved walking.
Up the cobblestone strat.
Okay.
Streets.
So I'd want the partner to help them out by pointing. And again, if they're not sure of the word, they raise their hand. And then we are alternating reading sentences. You can go first, George. George would be swinging under. Go ahead.
Pep had just finished listening intensely to a lecture in his Origins of Western Philosophy class, an interesting night class held at Georgetown University.
Although he was a freshman, he had some upper level classes in the evening, which he didn't mud.
You said mind. Is that, you said mud. Is that what you see?
Oh, mind. Yeah. So they may not know that correction quite that way, but
Okay.
You can say that word again.
Gotcha.
Or if they know the correction, you can teach it. But that can be irritating for kids if you have somebody to
Sure.
make your correction. He enjoyed walking on the Georgetown streets at night. Your turn.
The air was crisp, the sky was dark, and street lights lit up the rolling fog.
Autumn leaves crunched as he walked up along the cobblestone streets lined with townhouses of many colors while listening to Mozart on his iPad. So we're alternating now. As a teacher, I'm rotating, listening to this and doing some pressure release with the two while they're doing it. I'll take over, I'll point, and take over, point, take over. So kids are working together on whatever book they're working on and doing this approach. That's called Fast Friends. We've really talked about many different approaches to, the classroom lessons, like 5 different approaches. We talked about doing the standard lesson with the whole class doing it with you first. And that's the basic, and then adding Fast Friends into it. And then having your high kids have a whole language bag. That's the basis. And that's a really good approach, okay? So it started with the basic, and then we added the Fast Friends as part of it. We talked about performance grouping across grade levels, which is really effective, but you have to have administration behind you. We talked about doing the basic lesson, but having your reading groups and going to each reading group and giving them what they need for their book if you want kids in different books. So if you have a high group, you may teach them the walkers, just quickly a walker lesson and then go to the book. Your middle group, you may be teaching vowel change or vowel tag, but it's more complicated and a lot to manage, okay? We talked about if you only have a half hour, what a half hour lesson looks like. And it's a fast-paced lesson. And then we talked about Fast Friends, which is a wonderful lesson anytime your class is interrupted and you have a half hour. It's also part of the basic plan, but by itself, it can actually run itself. So those are the types. So next week, we're going to be showing what 2 hours, a 2-hour workshop over the next 2 weeks, which will show you and your paras and parents what they can do to help read. And it'll give them a basic understanding of reading in 2 hours. I have Tammy, and I've got George, and I've got Carrie, and I've got Corinne. Okay. And you're all in a classroom. So the kids will be moving to the room where the teacher could change rooms. It doesn't matter. But if I'm a start 1, I might go to Carrie's room. And if I'm a start 2, I might go to George's. If I'm a start 3, I may go to Tammy's room. And there's one, is it Corinne? If I'm a start 5, I may go there. And so it's across the grade. And they can determine, I think they had 3 basic groups at Country Day. But so you actually either the kids moved to the teacher, and the teacher was a start to, or sometimes the teachers would change rooms. If there was a lot of kids from one classroom that were a particular start, the teacher may stay in that room and the kids may stay, and then other kids will move out. But you basically are using your 4 classrooms as performance groups. Again, why it's so slick is you're doing one presentation. It's sanity. See, there's so much stuff we do as a school. It's too much. And so this was meant partially to make it easier on the teacher as well. But your administration has to be behind it. So, yeah. So George, yeah, you're actually either the kids are moving to another classroom or sometimes the teacher will move to a class. You're basically, though, breaking up into 4 different classrooms of performance groups, 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever.
Sounds like heaven.
Doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, if you had your teachers in your school taught, if they knew how to do this program, you literally could take your 1st and 2nd grade teachers and figure this out.
I mean, you have anywhere between pre-K, because I taught GATE, all the way to college level, just about. And it's like, what do you, I mean, they say to do it.
Solution. You were talking about how difficult it is just to split your students, right? But if you split your students and you had 3 parent volunteers who actually had some idea what you're talking about, they could manage the group and you could rove and teach each the lessons, right? So to allow you to implement this diversified classroom within your own setting, and every child would be at their appropriate level without stigma. But interestingly enough, if you have the opportunity to put parents in distance learning, this would work as well.
That's true.
You could put it on it's designed to be in person, but we found it, we have adapted it to work over distance learning in Zoom. And so, it will, the board itself is designed to work. The biggest problem with all the digital boards that we ran into, they don't work with lockdown computers. Because you have to add on an app for Zoom, you have to add an app for the Chromebook or something that the school doesn't want you in there doing, because truthfully enough, they don't want people inside their computers for good reasons.
Yeah.
This app that we're using is actually browser based. And so it works off of any computer. As long as you have the right browser, you can use it on any system. So any tablet, any computer, any iPhone, they all work. And so you could create a hybrid model where you have some people Zooming in, some people in person. You could really create a 3-ring circus if you really want to, right?
Yeah, it's just because
but with the idea being, you really have to, at the very beginning of the year, you need to make sure that you've done the Tattum Reading survey, so you know what the starts are. You're going to get all this information from your school, and that's all great. But really, what you want to be able to do is performance group them to their start, and that will get you the alignment you need to level your classroom into the 3 groups. And then from there, you can move kids up and down. If they zoom out of the phonics thing and their word form area is firing and they become a start 4 overnight, you move them up. It's fine.
Because I've been looking into it, and it just, I've been telling everybody at my school site, and I'm like, if you could take all of the different, because we've been through Lindamood Bell, we've done all the thinking maps training. Long Beach is very much into professional development. We are very well trained. And if you took all of them and thought, okay, we don't need this, we don't need this, we don't need this, let's just take this and this and this. That's what you guys have done. Streamlined it, put it together, and said, here we go. It's really important that a 13-year-old can start it and feel good about himself, and a 5-year-old can start it and feel good about themselves, because there's no stigma in there.
I was hoping to get to say something, Steve. So I'm 57, and I've been tutoring kids since I was 25. So it's been like more than 25 years. And I've been through Orton programs and LIPS and several other ones. And I remember the first time I made the connection between LIPS and Orton, because my speech therapist I was working with, we just hashed together what we could do to try to, because we had the same population of kids. She was doing phonemic awareness with LIPS, and I was doing Orton, and realized we had the same population. So we started working together, and it was just neat to see what happened when we kind of like took the best of both and put them together. And I'll just be honest, when I started reading your descriptions and starting to watch your videos, I just started laughing, because I just was so excited, because it was exactly what we had been trying to do. Of course, yours is much more elaborate. You've been writing all this curriculum and all these stories, but some of the descriptions and some of the ways you teach rules and what you cut out. I have the whole Wilson set that I never used, because you have to go through 5 books to get through short vowels. And it was just, it was just delightful. I was like, it's the man from my own heart. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to tell you that, but I'm just so grateful that I feel like this is a big piece of what I was missing, is having, because all my kids are middle and high school. So they're older kids who don't want to read things like, Magic School Bus. They want to read things that feel like they're reading real literature, but stuff that they can read. So I'm just really thrilled. The stories just, they don't feel babyish at all. From my heart, I appreciate all the work you've done and that you're willing to give it to the world to help kids. So very, very, very grateful.